Buongiorno. Buongiorno a tutti, amici, colleghi. Before I introduce our very special guest, I just have a question. Does anyone watch that new program on TV, Made in New Jersey or Made in Jersey? Well, I just have to say that she is a cross between Snooki and the Housewives of New Jersey. But she's a good lawyer, right? She's a very good lawyer as far as I can tell, but still there's a lot to be done in that area. Okay, it's my great honor to present our next speaker, Justice Marie L. Garibaldi, who was the first woman to serve on the New Jersey Supreme Court. She graduated from Connecticut College and received her law degree from Columbia University and her master's in tax law from New York University. That's impressive. Prior to her appointment to the court, she was a tax partner in the firm of Riker, Danzig, Shearer, Highland, and Peretti. Justice Garibaldi is also active in community affairs. She was the first woman to serve as president of the New Jersey State Bar Association. The justice received several awards. She has also received honorary degrees from St. John University School of Law, Seton Hall University School of Law, Caldwell College, College of St. Elizabeth, and St. Peter's College. The justice retired from the court in February 2000. She currently is a member and second vice chairman of the Board of Governors of Hackensack University Medical Center. And there's a whole list of other organizations that she's been involved with, but I'll let her do the talking now. Justice Marie L. Garibaldi.
Buongiorno. It is my great honor to introduce our second featured speaker in this segment, Rosemary Alito, Esquire. She is a partner in the international law firm of K&L Gates in Newark, and that firm is ranked as one of the top 25 law firms on the list of America's best corporate law firms. Ms. Alito is co-chair of the firm's 100-lawyer global labor and employment practice, and she is regarded as one of New Jersey's top employment lawyers. And she also has been named as one of the 100 most powerful employment lawyers in the country. She serves as chairman of the editorial board of the weekly New Jersey Law Journal, the state's leading legal publication. Her employment law treatise and law review article on the 1991 Civil Rights Act have been cited by state and federal courts and scholarly publications. She is past president of the Association of the Federal Bar of New Jersey and serves in leadership positions on numerous professional committees. She is a graduate of Smith College and Rutgers School of Law at Newark. And last but not least, she's the younger sister of our U.S. Supreme Court Justice Samuel A. Alito, Jr. Rosemary Alito, Esquire.
Can you hear me? Okay, good. First, thank you for that kind introduction, Counsel General, and all other honored guests and friends. I'm really pleased to participate in a program which has such outstanding lecturers. However, it is not fair to speak after three professors. Now, I know this young lady is not a professor yet, but I'm sure she will be shortly, because they lecture all the time. Judges, you know, we don't have to say too much, but the professors do it every day. Now, our topic is experiences of Italian-American lawyers in America. First, Italian-Americans came very slowly to prominence in the legal field. Part of that reason was that the early Italian immigrants did not focus primarily on education as a means to succeed in America. And that's understandable given their background in Italy. Approximately 7 million Italians came to the United States from Italy between 1880 and 1929. 79% were male, 80% were between 14 and 44 years old. Over half of the southern Italians and 11% of the northern Italians could neither read nor write, and the females had an even higher illiteracy rate. Now, these young men were primarily laborers who came to America for the reason that most immigrants came to America then and still come to America to make a living and improve the working conditions of their families. And they came seeking the American dream, but they didn't relate the American dream with education. Instead, they relied on what they did in Italy and what got them to America: hard manual labor, determination, and their family. So therefore, there weren't at that stage too many lawyers. Now, I did find a couple of outstanding lawyers, but I'm not sure I have all this information after hearing Ciro. Because I did get William Pacha, but I have that he was the only Italian-American who signed the Declaration of Independence. Now, I know Delaware is a little state, but I do think maybe Rodney's name was not Italian and people didn't recognize it, or I don't know what it was. But it's interesting because William Pacha was quite a bit like Rodney, because they did everything in those days. I mean, they first were in the, he came from Maryland, the Maryland Assembly, then they were in the Continental Congress, then they were, the United States Congress, governor of Maryland, and then ended up as a federal district court judge. Now, the other one was that I'm going to mention, was about 100 years after Pacha. He was Charles Bonaparte, and he was also from Maryland. He was a graduated valedictorian from Harvard College and then went on to Harvard Law School and was a practicing lawyer in Baltimore. And then he caught the eye of President Theodore Roosevelt. And he became his Secretary of Labor, and then he also was his Attorney General. And he was the person who thought that there should be an organized investigatory agency that just served the federal jurisdiction. And so he was the founder of the FBI. And I think, now I have also in my notes that he was the first person to serve as a cabinet member, but I don't know, because Ciro said that, I guess it was the nephew, right, of Rodney, who also had the name Rodney, was the first person to serve in the cabinet because he served in Thomas Jefferson's. So that's your discussion for next year. We can decide who was right. But it's interesting because one of the most recently renowned FBI directors is Louis Freed, who his mom is Italian, and Louis is very active in the National Italian American Foundation. Now, even though at that time there weren't too many Italians who had gone to college, in the 1920s, some of them did start to go to college, and one of them was my father. His father came from Italy. His mother was Italian, but was born in America. He graduated from Hoboken High School, was a young kid, 16, and went to Georgetown College and then Georgetown Medical School, which he absolutely loved. And at the same time, James Cesali, the father of Jimmy Cesali, who was the former Attorney General of New Jersey and also the former Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of New Jersey. His dad went to Georgetown, didn't go to medical school, went to law school. So they were starting to have a group of Italians who came over and who were starting to be educated. Now, another a new wave of Italian immigrants arrived after the Second World War. They did connect that it was important to have an education to succeed in America. And of course, by this time, the children of the first wave of immigrants also were getting involved in college. And so more and more Italian Americans became lawyers, and I was one of them. Now, I have to say, all my grandparents except one was born in America. But they all married Italians for generation and generation. And they all married families who came from Genoa. So basically, even though I've been here for a long time, my family, I'm still 100% Italian American. And of course, my name could be not more Italian. I won't pronounce it because everybody who has introduced me pronounces it correctly, and I pronounce it like an American, Garibaldi, which doesn't say anything. But I have to say, the reason I tell you that, I have never felt discriminated because of my heritage. And I think first, I lived in Hudson County all my life. Hudson County is a very diverse county. Lots of Italian Americans, always have been lots of Italian Americans. I went to a little private school from the 1st to the 12th grade, very diverse group, never felt any discrimination at Stevens. When I went to Connecticut College, I never felt any discrimination against me. I did think that some of the students, there weren't that many Italian Americans there, but the ones who were perceived to look like what people think of the stereotype of Italians, they were not as accepted as I was. Then I went to Columbia. Columbia University Law School perceived no discrimination against Italian Americans. However, when I went to get a legal position, I perceived a great deal of discrimination, but not because I was Italian, but because I was a woman. And I think that one of the major reasons I never felt discriminated against because of my heritage, I was so focused against all the discrimination that was directed against me because I was a woman, that it never occurred to me that anybody else would think about even being Italian American. And then I went to the government, and the government was then and still is a great resource. It hired a lot of women before anyone else was doing it, and they also hire a lot of minorities. And then I went to a law firm in New Jersey, very rigid law firm. I think you were there too at one time, right? McCarter and English? Yeah. But it was a very rigid law firm, but it wasn't rigid because against Italian Americans. That was the way it was. That was the program of the firm. And then I went to my firm, Riker, Danzig, Shearer, and Holland and Peretti. No discrimination because I was an Italian American, and I overcame the gender bias. I think one of the reasons I overcome bias is I don't mean this to be funny. I'm really insensitive. I mean, people can say things, and I don't even realize they may be insulting me. So because I don't realize they're insulting me, I don't take offense. So it really sounds crazy, but it does make some sense if you think about it. A lot of Italians, young Italian lawyers, practiced by themselves or formed firms with a couple of other guys and gals. And true to their Italian roots, many of them just did not like the regimental character of a large firm and wanted to be their own bosses, and also felt that in the past, the large firms were not welcoming to Italian Americans. So where are we today? Before I get into that discussion, I'm going to take the program over to Rosemary Alito.
Thank you. I feel humbled following the professors and their very studied histories of Italian Americans. And I'm not an academic, although I've written a book on employment law. I'm a trial lawyer. And trial lawyers tell stories, so I'm just going to tell a few stories about being an Italian American lawyer in New Jersey and being a female Italian American lawyer in New Jersey. And to tell that, I have to back up just a little bit. Justice Garibaldi mentioned that the first wave of Italian American immigrants to the United States did not initially make the connection between education and advancement. My parents did. My father was born in Italy. My mother was born here. Her older siblings were born in Italy. And we were taught from day one that the way to advance in the United States was to get a good education. I remember my father telling me that he would be unable to provide my brother and me with trust funds for our future, and so instead he would provide us with educations. And they did that. I don't know how. They worked very, very hard and somehow managed to send my brother to Princeton and Yale Law School and to send me to Smith and Rutgers Law School without our ever having to take on the crushing student debt that so many young people today have, and that was the Italian determination that through educational opportunities, the next generation would advance. I think my father always wanted to be a lawyer. It's probably one of the reasons why my brother and I both ended up going to law school, but law school was out of the question for my father. It was a miracle that he was able to go to college. He tells stories of walking to college from the Chambersburg section of Trenton to what was then known as Trenton State College. There was a requirement at Trenton State College at the time that you wear a suit, a shirt, and a tie. And my father didn't have a suit. And going out and buying a shirt was out of the question. And somehow he got some materials and sewed a collar and upper part of a shirt. It wasn't a full shirt. He just sewed something together to look like he had a shirt so he could go to school. And he did, and he graduated, and he had a wonderful career working for the New Jersey government. But I think he always would have liked to go to law school, and so my brother and I did. So one other thing about the background, and this is the woman part, but I think this is also very typical of the Italian Americans of my parents' generation. My mother was, she is still living, about to turn 98. Thanks in big part to the kindness of Gilda, who, when my mother refuses to eat, brings her her homemade Italian food, which she always prefers over hospital food or even her aide's cooking, but I digress. My mother is an incredible, very progressive woman who advanced her own education, went to Trenton State College also, and then on to Columbia for her master's degree in education. And so I grew up in a house where it was expected, it was assumed that the same opportunities would be available to me as were available to my brother. So I advanced very far along in life without ever realizing that there were people out there who thought that Italians or women shouldn't do the same thing and shouldn't have the same opportunities as everyone else. This carried on through college. I went to an all-women's college, wonderful college in Massachusetts. So I'm in law school, getting ready to apply for my first job as a lawyer, and I heard some unpleasant stories about people going out for job interviews. I heard about someone with the best qualifications who went to a job interview at what were called white shoe firms, the old line firms that represented the biggest corporations in the United States. And this person was asked in his job interview, well, do you think that an Italian will fit in here? This was the 1970s. So I go out for my first off-campus interview. The way it works is you get interviewed on campus, and if you do well, you go out to interview at the law firm. So I go to one of the biggest law firms in New Jersey for my interview. Walk in, I've got a new suit, I've got an attaché that my father gave me, I'm ready for my first job interview, and they hand me a clipboard. And I think to myself, this is a little odd. They have my resume. They interviewed me at Rutgers Law School. They hand me a clipboard. It's got a set of questions, and I got a pen. So they say, go over there and sit down and fill it out. And I start filling out the form, name, address, all the information on my resume. I'm thinking it's odd, but what do I know? It's my first interview. Until I get to the question of how many words a minute do you type? And I realized that it was assumed because I was a woman that I was there for a secretarial job. Well, I went and said, you know, you made a mistake. And of course, I was pulled into a room with all of the male senior partners who are apologizing to me for this mishap. I did not go to work at that law firm. Instead, I went to what was then one of the major firms in New Jersey, which was a wonderful place. But when I went there in 1977, there was one woman partner, and there was, to the best of my recollection, one Italian partner. But among the group that started there for that summer, I was one of them, and my friend Angelo Genova, who many of you may know, was also with me. And times have changed since then. Of course, as many of you know, Angelo now heads one of the leading law firms in New Jersey. And I've been able to crack the world of what used to be called the white shoe firms. People like Justice Garibaldi led the way and broke down huge barriers, both for women and Italians in New Jersey, with all of the achievements that she had. Things have become progressively easier each few years for women and for Italians and for other ethnic groups in New Jersey, thanks to what Justice Garibaldi went through. But although we've progressed, there's still a lot of progress to be made. And I think it's important for us not to forget, at the same time that we celebrate all the achievements of Italians in New Jersey, I think it's important to remain vigilant to the fact that there still continue to be some individuals who still discriminate against Italians. There are also people who discriminate against women, but it's probably something we'll never get rid of. There have been a few incidents during my career. When I joined McCarter in English, as Justice Garibaldi referred to, which is one of the old school law firms in New Jersey. Someone, a leader at the bar, sent me a letter congratulating me on joining McCarter in English, in which he said, well, I guess now you will join the ranks of, and he listed the 4 other Italian partners in the firm. And I thought, well, this is a little bit odd. And then a few years later, I was receiving an award for serving on what's called the Client Protection Fund of New Jersey, which is an organization that provides compensation to individuals who have been suffered harm due to the few dishonest lawyers in the state of New Jersey. And I'm receiving a beautiful silver tray from the state of New Jersey for having served there. And the same leader of the bar of New Jersey says, that's not going to look too good with spaghetti sauce. So those are minor incidents in the progress of Italians. And I mention them only because I think we do ourselves a disservice if we start to think that there's no need for us to continue to protect Italian Americans against discrimination. And finally, just to bring us up to date on the progress since 1977, and I think when Justice Garibaldi became a partner at Riker, you were the first female partner, first female partner in the firm, and then you'd have 1 or 2 women partners at the firms. Now, in my firm, being a woman is nothing. You've got women on the executive committee. You've got women heading practice groups, as I do. You have women who are in charge of offices. And the same thing with Italians. I have close to 2,000 lawyers in my law firm now in offices around the globe. Our office in New Jersey is about 80% Italian partners. And even better, last year we opened an office in Milan, which I have not yet visited, but I'm looking forward to.
I just want to say one other thing, that my mother is 103. And also a very strong-willed lady.